I've worked for Hertfordshire County Council as a corporate risk manager and health and safety, head of and insurance. Worked with Tower Hamlets for almost 3 years. I have to say, on more than one level, a really interesting experience of working with that authority. I don't think you could get much more of a contrast of going to the City of London Corporation for the last 7 or 8 years. I'm still doing some work with them, but largely now I guess you might say I'm sort of semi-retired. I've also been chairman of Alarm, and I stood down from the board a couple of years ago. Anyway, that's about me, but this talk is about risk bow ties. Has everyone heard of risk bow ties? Anyone use bow ties? Oh, great stuff. Okay, well, there'll be an opportunity to trial a bow tie through a case study. The bow tie provides a visual summary of all the plausible scenarios that could exist around a certain hazard or risk, identifies the preventative actions required, mitigating actions that are the processes in place to mitigate the effect of the risk. Bow ties are a risk analysis and reporting tool, and that's the point I really want to stress, that we'll see a little bit later on, that you can use bow ties to report risk information to your boards and members. Come to that, and I'm particularly thinking of strategic or corporate or principal risks, that you may call them. That's sort of what it looks like in a simplified form. In the middle, you'll have the risk event, and it may be set out in slightly different ways to this, but in this diagram, it says, well, what are the causes of that risk event? Why might that risk event occur? So think about the 5 whys, if you've heard of them. Keep asking why that risk event might occur. And then you'll identify the key causes of that risk. And then you look at what are the preventative actions. There may be a preventative action for all the causes, but there may not be, and that might show you a gap in your mitigation or preventive actions for that particular risk. Or it may be that you can't do anything about it, of that cause. And the consequences, be a range of consequences. Usually, I don't know what you think, but usually the consequences of risk happening are far less than the causes, but they may be more significant. And the mitigating actions to that. And you can see from this diagram that there are 3 consequences, but only 1 mitigating action. But not all consequences necessarily, again, may have a mitigating action, but that may show you a gap in your risk arrangements. The tiger example, some of you will have seen this before. We're building up a bow tie here in effect. So the risk event is the tiger escapes from the cage. Why might that tiger escape from the cage? The gate isn't strong enough, the gate is left open. What happens if the gate is left open? The tiger kills or mauls a member of the public, and we might have to shoot the tiger. Ever since I've used this diagram, I'm very aware that tigers, giraffes, lions escape from zoos on a regular basis. Wasn't the most recent one was in the Highlands? You remember that? So we're now looking at the left-hand side, and we've got those causes, and we've got 2 actions for each of those causes. This can help you. If you know what the cause is, then what can you do about it? What actions or controls may you have to reduce the likelihood of the tiger escaping from the cage? On the right hand side, if the tiger does escape from the cage, and those are the effects in blue, then what can we do about that event if the risk occurs? And that's usually a business continuity plan or something like that. In this case, there's a search plan, we have access to a dart gun, and for those in the room who know anything about insurance, I'm not sure that if we shoot the tiger, the insurance company will pay out for the loss of the tiger. But anyway, it's there by way of example. So if we do those things, that may reduce the impact. If we show that as a bow tie, we've got the tiger escapes from the cage, we've got the causes, got the consequences, and we've got the preventative and mitigating controls or actions. Okay, so that's how we would show that as a bow tie. Once we have that information described as a bow tie, we can put a lot of that information in a risk register. There's a risk description, so we could take that from the bow tie, and we have the action descriptions, and then obviously you have to fill out the rest. But there's a lot of information you can take to pull that across to your risk register. I guess most of us, if not all of us, are familiar with an approach to managing a risk. We can tolerate the risk, I accept it. We can transfer risks maybe through insurance or contract. We can terminate a risk by not actually undertaking the objective that gives rise to the risk, or we can treat it. So those are known as the 4 T's, and within treat there are 4 different types of controls. So it's just worth bearing this in mind if you are doing something back at base, what type of controls we're thinking about. Preventative action, so those are the ones that we want to take to prevent the tiger escaping from the cage. The detective ones are things like exception and error reports, CCTV, inventory checks. Directive are those ones which we're required to undertake either through procedures or processes, written policies, perhaps through health and safety regulation. And corrective, things like business continuity plans, incident handling, or virus isolation. But there's more information about those types of controls. I mention it because what we're trying to do through the bow tie is to mitigate the risk as far as we can. So if we think about the types of controls we have, and if we don't have any, for example, preventative controls, then maybe we need to start to think about, well, what can reduce the risk. The key thing in risk registers, are the actions doing anything? Attending the meeting, so what? Attending the meeting to establish something that has an impact upon the likelihood is what you need to know. Bow ties, though, can be more complex. This is just an example of one, which I'm not going to dwell upon, but you can see the various links between the causes and controls, etc. You can use a bow tie to indicate how well a control is being performed. So here I've used the red on the preventative actions being serious concern, amber is action control in progress, and green is complete. But you can change it as you wish. The point is that you can use this to report to your senior managers and your board or elected members how well the mitigating actions are being performed. Now, it wouldn't be a JCAD meeting without highlighting one or two aspects of the existing JCAD system, and I'm told that it can produce bow ties. This is probably quite a simplistic one, but it can be more complex, and similarly a butterfly. So it's a different type of report, but the essential point is that the system, if you have the system, can produce these type of reports in bow tie stroke butterfly formats. Thorough explanation of the issue or the risk event can be applied at any level, but I've particularly focused on strategic level today. Not everyone thinks in straight lines, so the risk register might appeal to some, but actually it does, I think, get greater engagement when you can actually see something, and it encourages more creative, innovative thinking about the solutions. A risk register, depending on how it's formatted, sometimes you can't see the links between the cause and the event, okay, or the control actions and the risk event. And when you have a list of your actions or controls on the risk register, you don't know whether they're preventative or after the event. So this is a way of showing that. And as I mentioned earlier, the data can be used to populate risk register. That's it. Thank you very much. I know I overrun, Phil. So any questions? I'm around the rest of the day. Thank you very much.